Here we are, James Living Faith, our resources showcase. Welcome. Thank you for giving us your time today. Welcome to everybody who's listening later on. Let's dive into finding out more about this brilliant resource. Who are we? Who's written it? Well, the wonderful team at Faith in Kids have written it for you. We are all about confident parents and thriving churches working together to raise children who trust in Jesus eternally. This resource is here and it exists because we want to put it in the hands of churches and help parents continue the conversation at home as we talk about what it means to live out your faith and to live practically as Christians. So we're going to take you through the resource this afternoon. A couple of things just to mention as we go along. If you've got any questions about what we're talking about today, please pop them in the chat and we'll answer any questions that you've got at the end. This session is being recorded and it'll be available for you to watch later, to perhaps share with your Sunday school teams, and it'll live on our website with our resource so you can go and find out more and come back for a reminder if you need to. Lovely. Before that, Joe, you are going to come and tell us a little bit more about James.
Thank you, Amy. Yes, I am. It's lovely to meet you all virtually if we haven't met before. I'm Jo and I'm the Written Resources Manager at Faith in Kids, and I'm just going to spend a couple of minutes telling you about James Living Faith, our new Sunday school resource. And Amy's already said this is such a practical epistle. This is a letter written by James, and he wanted people to be really clear on some practical points of what it means to be a follower of our Lord Jesus. So who is James writing to? He is writing to Christians who are scattered and they are persecuted. And they're two of the big things to bear in mind and to help the children to understand as we're teaching this. They are scattered Christians and they are persecuted Christians. They're finding it super tough to live for Jesus. And James wants to write to them to say, keep going, keep living out the faith that you have. I'm going to share with you just a couple of verses from this early on in the letter, from the first Sunday school lesson that we've written, to give us a bit more of a flavour of James's tone and of what he's got to say to us. Hold on. Oh, I'm hoping that has worked. I'm getting nods. Lovely. So I'll just share these verses with you. James says, do not merely listen to the word and so deceive yourselves. Do what it says. Anyone who listens to the word but does not do what it says is like someone who looks at his face in a mirror and after looking at himself goes away and immediately forgets what he looks like. But whoever looks intently into the perfect law that gives freedom and continues in it, not forgetting what they have heard but doing it, they will be blessed in what they do. So James's take-home point throughout the letter is that faith is not just something to be understood in the mind, something to be intellectual, something to be kept hidden. It's something to be lived out. Throughout the book of James, we see so many calls to actually live a changed life, a different life, a life that brings glory to God. And we also hear about the blessing that will follow for people who do that, who listen and then who act. So that is where our series in James starts, with listen and act. And then we move on through other passages of the book. We think about what it looks like to love people. We think about what it looks like to use our words in the right way and how that can show the faith that we have. We spend quite a lot of time thinking about choices that we make, choices that might cost, choices that might be really difficult. And we spend time towards the end thinking about what it looks like to wait for the Lord to return and how we can live a life that's prayerful and expectant as we do that. Now, throughout all of these sessions, there are really good and strong visual illustrations that James himself gives. We saw in the verses that I shared with you, the illustration of a mirror. Trying to look in a mirror has a purpose. We do that so that we know what we look like and potentially change our appearance. And that is what he wants his readers to understand. You read the word or you hear the word, and for many of the children, it will be hearing the word, not reading it because of their age. And there is a response, there is a changed life. One interesting thing about the book of James is that he doesn't spend a lot of time unpacking the actual message of the gospel. James is presuming that his hearers and readers already know the gospel message. And so he doesn't have a chapter where he goes back over the cross and the resurrection and what that means. So that is something to bear in mind as you teach it to the children. That is something that James assumes his readers already know. And we probably need to bear that in mind when we think when in the year we might teach this, when in a program for children we might teach this. What do they already know about Jesus and about faith? Where are they on that journey? And how could this resource help them to move forwards? And Lizzie is now going to walk us through some of the actual lessons so that we can see what you will get if you download our resource.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Jo. So our Sunday school lessons contain everything you would normally see in our regular Sunday school. We have our preparation time for our leaders. We have 7s and under and 8s and over teaching time, which include a get-going game, teaching, another game after the teaching, as well as our hearts and hands, chat time sheet and craft. All these things can be found in the resource as a colouring in sheet, chat time sheet, as well as in the resource you'll also find our take-home sheet, which can be given to families to continue the conversation at home. There are 2 streams. There's the talk together for those families who are new to opening the Bible together at home. And we also have the Open the Bible stream, which is there for families who are used to opening the Bible and want to delve deeper into what the children have been learning in their James lessons in their Sunday school. As well as the lessons and the take-home sheet. Coming in January, we have our a brand new Faith in Kids for Kids podcast series. There'll be 1 podcast for each of the Sunday school lessons. So you can send that link home with the families so they can listen to the podcast after they have heard the lesson each week. And then, as always, we really, really value your feedback. On each lesson, there is a QR code which takes you to our feedback form. We would love to hear what went well, what didn't go well, how we can improve the resource for you and for others. So please do fill in that form and let us know how we can make our Sunday schools even better. Brilliant. I'm now going to hand back over to Jo to help us think through, over to Amy. Sorry, Amy, who's going to help us think through some top tips for teaching James in our Sunday school. Over to you, Amy.
Unmuting myself. There we are. So brilliant. I hope you can start to see how it fits together. We've got our brilliant interactive Sunday school lesson with all the games and all the normal fun stuff we've got. You've got the podcast so the families can carry on the conversation about what they learned at home. And I just want to spend a couple of minutes giving you some, this isn't by no means exhaustive, a few tips on teaching an epistle to children. So the first thing I want to say is more general about teaching epistles. So epistles, that means a letter. So it's a letter that's been written to a church, giving them advice. So those epistles are super practical. They are written to Christians. They are written normally telling us super practical information, what we believe, how we behave, how we live out our faith. And James in particular is super practical. That's why we've got all our sort of DIY type themes on our visuals for this series, because James is really telling us how to get practical and how to do the work of living out our faith. So enjoy the practicality of it all. Next thing, get on the James train. So James is faith in action all the way through. As Jo already said, he is writing to Christians, so he isn't explaining what faith is. He is explaining what faith looks like in action, how what we believe changes how we behave. So his letter to the church is full of that. The other thing I'd love to say about James is he can be quite stark, and to the modern ear, he can perhaps sound a little grumpy. So as an example of that, he talks in that passage, he says, he tells the believers, do not listen to the word and so deceive yourself. Do what it says. So he could come across as sounding a bit grumpy and shouting at everybody. But when you remember that just a few verses before, he's saying, my dear brothers and sisters. So sometimes when James sounds a little stark, it's great. We can blame James. We can say, listen to how James says this. Why do you think he's that passionate? Why is he so concerned? Why is he telling his brothers and sisters that he really cares about, that they've got to be careful about this thing? So it's really good to blame James and to hear his heart for his fellow brothers and sisters in Christ and what he wants for them. Nearly there. Focus on the similarities. So build bridges rather than barriers. So it's a different audience, it's a different time, but we are still people who struggle to live out our faith. We're still people who struggle to show with our actions, with our words. We still need the same help. So it's really good for us to see the similarities between us and the original audience. And finally, lean into the really fun visuals. For children, there's a lot of really good stuff going on. We've got boats, we've got forest fires, we've got horses with bits in their mouths, we've got mirrors to look in that we walk away and forget what we look like. They're really, really practical things that children can really get a grip of. We've got some amazing visuals, but I'm going to let Lizzie show them to you because I'm struggling with the technology. So Lizzie, show us an amazing visual. There we go. Beautiful. Thank you, Lizzie. I love those pictures. They're throughout the thing.
It's kind of a final call for any questions that people might have. And while you're thinking of your questions, I'm just going to share with you where you can find the resources and a couple of other bits of admin at the end. But do ask us any questions that you've got and we will try to answer. We've had a brilliant question come in. I wasn't clear whether there are lesson plans for all our groups, 3 to 5s, 5 to 7s and 8s to 11s. We have divided the content into 2. We've got an under 7s and an 8s and O. So within that, there would be scope for teaching it separately to the 3 to 5s and the 5 to 7s. You could simplify, or you could teach the same lesson to both age groups. We've tried to write something that works pretty much from 4-5 upwards. And yes, it is available today. I'm going to just share my screen with you all. Hopefully you can see this. There we are. This is where you can find this resource. And on that page, you can download all of the individual lessons. You can also download the overview table, which I did show you very briefly earlier, but I know that's too brief to take it all in. So yeah, and this link will be sent out to you after the showcase if you want to take a look. So you don't need to scribble that down now. I now can't see if there are any more questions, but I'm looking at Amy and Lizzie and presuming that there aren't. If any questions come to mind later, please do email us in. And as Lizzie said, we would love to hear your feedback if you do use the resource, what you loved, what you didn't love. We equally love to hear feedback that challenges, feedback that suggests changes for the future. We love that as much as the feedback which is positive. I just wanted to take a moment to say that this resource is free, in case you're wondering. All of our resources are free to download. To adapt, you're very welcome to use just some of these lessons or to use just bits of these lessons if that's what works best for your context. And we're able to do that because we are so generously supported. We have a group of wonderful supporters who give to us financially, month by month. That could be a tiny amount of money that feels very insignificant, but every little goes a very long way. And if that's something that you might be able to consider doing, there's a QR code and a link there. And we always love to hear from new supporters. We also love prayer supporters. If you're not on our mailing list, please sign up to stay in touch. Then you'll get to be the first people to hear about our next resources and all of the other wonderful things that we're doing. We won't spam you. It will be a few emails about things that we think would particularly interest you, and a link to sign up and stay in touch is on the screen now. And I also wanted to just flag up 2 events that we have coming up in the next couple of weeks. We have 2 training events. We have Energize, which is for toddler group teams, on Monday, the 10th of November. That's in the evening, starting at 8 o'clock. And we'll be thinking about how to bring the church and the toddler group closer together. And that's for the whole team to come to together. We also have Inspire on Tuesday, the 18th of November, which is training specifically for people who lead the children's ministry in their church, whether paid or voluntarily. We're sort of thinking the overall leader of the children's and youth ministry there. That's at 10 o'clock in the morning for a couple of hours, and we'll be thinking about how we can support families who are struggling. It'd be lovely to see you at either of those events, and more details are available in the chat about how you can sign up to book. There are still spaces. Thanks so much for joining us. It's been a pleasure. We hope you enjoyed this resource. And yeah, if you've got any last minute questions, do put something in the chat, and we will try and answer them in the next few seconds. We don't.
Jo, there's just a couple of little questions about people enjoyed our Nehemiah videos so much they would love there to be some James videos. There are excellent visuals that you could use very creatively, but not videos with this series. And there isn't an over 11s element for this one. So yes, we love that you're asking for videos. There will be videos featuring in future resources, but not in this one. And the same as with all of our other resources, there is an element of an all-age talk that can be used for in church or in a different setting, and then session plans for the rest if you just went straight out to groups. It's not an all-age talk, it is a Sunday school resource, but there is all-together talk elements.
Brilliant. I think we have answered everybody's question now. Even the questions that you've asked are very helpful, so that we can see what sorts of things people are asking about and people are asking for as we make plans for future resources. So do watch this space. More things will be coming in the new year, and we've got big plans for the next year, and we'd love to be able to tell you about them. So do sign up to stay in touch if you haven't already.
Thank you very much, everybody.